Let's move on to working with After Effects to modify footage. This can be quite useful as you need to do visual effects or you want to start to combine multiple pieces together. Let's go to folder 2, Controlling Time, and I'm going to open up the project Speed Up Start. You can open that into After Effects. Let's zoom in here. Command or Control plus will scale up the footage. Now in this case, we have some footage that is showing the pouring of candy or pills here. What I want to do is actually speed this up a little bit. It's taking quite a bit of time to fill in the container, and you can see there's multiple shots. Well, let's go ahead and process this. I'm going to come here and go to where the footage changes. I'll just drag through until I see the visual change. Should be right around here. There we go. Now using the page up or page down key, I can move between. Let's select that layer. Now let's choose Edit, Split Layer, and it turns it into a separate layer in the comp, giving us our other footage. Page up and page down, and there's the transition. Edit, Split Layer. Now in this case, we've taken this piece of footage and we've changed it. Let's turn off the top two tracks for a moment. Notice I have a column labeled Stretch. If you don't see it in your After Effects, you can right-click and choose Columns and see different options. Let's also bring up Duration. In this case, I can see the stretch factor. So, for example, if I stretch this by 50%, it's going to be shorter. And when I play it back, the footage is faster. But maybe I have a specific duration in mind. Now what I'll do instead is click and type that duration in, like 6 seconds, and press OK. Notice as I do this, it starts to transform things. Additionally, if you click, you can control where it is held in place. For example, is it based on the current frame, the in point of the layer, or the out point? So, for example, let's type in a new duration here for this layer of 8 seconds. And I've anchored it to the out point. When I click OK, you'll see how it shifts in relationship to the timeline. Now, this is quite interesting because you have precise control. If I hold down the Shift keys, for example, as I start to move things around, we can make those transformations. For example, let's go to a stretch factor of 25% and just pull this forward while holding the Shift key. It snaps into place. I'll come here towards the end, and instead of previewing the entire comp, I can drag the handle here for the work area. This work area handle helps you set what part of the composition you're actually working with. And again, Shift key will snap it. Now, when I preview, it's going to limit those previews to be between the beginning and the end of the work area. There they are. All right, let's go back here to the composition itself and click the preview button. I'll come here to the preview controls and click. You see that the footage is sped up, and as it plays back here, it's going to limit itself. Let's enable those layers. Now, as we watch this play back, you'll notice that when it gets to the end of the work area here, it will loop to the beginning. That's because we have looping on over here. This makes it so that it will keep playing between the beginning and the end of the work area. All right, when we change speed, there are a few things to note. Normally, this is a bigger deal when you slow things down, but it can actually help even on speed ups as well. Up here at the top of the composition, there are some controls. The one that matters here is this one, Enable Frame Blending. Video footage is made from frames. Frames are the individual still images that are going to comprise the footage itself. If we start to change the speed of those, Using frame blending will blend or mix them together for smoother speed changes. So I'll click to globally enable that. This turns on the switch, enabling it for the entire composition. However, you still need to go layer by layer to decide which layers take advantage of frame blending. Down at the bottom here, you'll see toggle, switches, and modes. If you click that, it'll switch things over, and this gives you that ability to look at modes versus switches. So what I'm going to do is click and drag down here to enable frame blending. That's this column right here, and that's going to enable frame blending for the individual layers. Okay, let's press the preview button. You can click the spacebar or press 0. And now it's recaching the frames. With the frame blending option on, you see we get a smoother effect. That's because we have more mixing of the individual frames here to create a gentler blend. Now, this is not playing at real time to start. The green bar indicates it's loading it, but when it gets to the end here, it'll restart, and now you'll see the footage playing back smoothly. With speed changes, the use of frame blending can be very helpful, as it will really blend things together and give you better speed up or slow down effects. Speaking of slowing things down, let's take a look at that next. If you want to slow down a shot, After Effects offers several great tools for this that are much better than what you'll find in most video editors. Let's open up Slow Motion Start here from folder 2. I'll choose Open and select Slow Motion Start. There it is. Now here we have a few nested clips. Some overcranking, some slow motion, etc. Let's explore our options. First up, we have pouring. If I take a look at this footage, you'll notice that it was shot 60 frames per second. Well, this is pretty typical. You can actually set many video cameras to 60 frames per second, which might be more than you need. If you're shooting specifically for slow motion, some cameras can shoot 120, 240, or even more. This is often something you'll find on action cameras or many professional cameras. These extra frames can be used for motion effects. So in this case, let's open up the footage by double-clicking, and I'll set this to fit. Let's review it.
Recording at 60 frames a second, so I'm going to take this. I'm getting thirsty. And do a little up and down on the picture there for slow motion.
There we go. So we're pouring the apple juice into the glass. Now, what I want to do is slow this down. If I select the original footage layer here, I can right-click and choose Interpret Footage, Main. This allows us to reassign the frame rate. Instead of using the 60 frames per second, technically 59.985 in this case, we can change it by going to Conform. Here, I'm going to conform to a true 24 frames per second, and you see that the new duration changes for the footage. I can now click OK. If you look up here in the properties, you'll see that it takes on the new frame rate, 24 frames per second. Let's right-click and make a new comp from the selection. Now what I'm going to do is play this.
Recording at 60 frames a second, so I'm going to take this. I'm getting thirsty.
Now notice the audio and the video are no longer in sync. Let's turn off the audio track there and just have an overall look. Here we have the 24 frames per second, and you can see a little bit more of what happens there with the transformation. Now that's definitely slowed down, which is pretty cool. And it takes longer for it to load. Now this flashing I wouldn't worry about. That's not actually there. That's just a graphics redraw issue that sometimes happens as you're working with your app. You can cut that down by going ahead and viewing at 100% here. And take a look at your preview quality here too. And I'll drop this to half quality. Now it'll recache, and it's a bit smoother. I would suggest, though, turning on frame blending here and enabling it. That's going to give you a smoother blend of those frames. You see as we drag through the slower effect. Now, what we can do here is really experiment. Here, I went a bit further. In this case, I took the footage and stretched it to 400%. I also did a little trick. I want you to look at the first layer here. Now look very closely. I'll zoom in. I offset each copy and stretched it. Additionally, if we press T for opacity, you'll see that I mixed them together. Now watch what happens. Ultimate slow motion effect. Really slowed down. By blending the footage here manually, stacking it, I was able to create a very dramatic slow-mo. Here, the footage is being forced into an extended state of additional stretching. And by stacking it and blending it, you're going to see that it creates a nice, smoother motion effect. Just look at that pour as it gently comes out, a drop there, and a little bit more. Now, that's really pushing this to the ultimate slow motion, but After Effects is quite useful in this way. I really like how that comes together. Okay, let's do one more slow motion effect. Here, we've got some overcrank footage. We've got the same shot at 30 and 60. So we're going to select that 60 frames per second, right-click, and choose Interpret Footage Main. Let's switch that to 29.97 frames per second. That's the typical frame rate when we refer to 30 frames per second. And I'll click OK. Now I can drop that into a new sequence and it will pick up the correct properties. Let's turn off the sound, enable frame blending, and turn it on for the layer. Now you'll see that our basketball player is going to move at half speed. Let's double click our footage layer and drag our playhead through and mark out the best parts of the action. In, out. And our footage takes on the new properties. Additionally, if I want to set the work area, B for beginning, I'll drag down here while holding the Shift key, N for end, and I've now got the preview area marked out. We can go to the composition here and have a look. There's our nice slow motion effect. I'm going to choose final quality here and press play. And we've got a nice smooth animation. Remember, if you decide to stretch things, you can do so. In this case, let's stretch based on the current frame, 200%. And click OK. You'll see that the key action is retained in place, but the footage did slow down more. There we go. Now these little flashes are frames that haven't yet been loaded. So if I click Cache before playback and click the button, that will start to load all those frames in. And you see a smoother animation. All right. There we go. I'll do that at full quality. And we get a nice, gentle slow motion effect. Once we render, that'll come out at the final quality for the project. Remember, if you're going to take advantage of motion effects, be sure to explore the use of frame blending and then enable it for the layer itself. That'll give you higher quality slow motion effects. Now, there's one more type of slow motion, and that's variable. Let's take a look at that next. Sometimes your footage may be close to right, but need only parts of its speed changed. Maybe you're trying to get a ramp effect for a music video, or in this next case, get a shot from a TV commercial to time out precisely. Sometimes you need things to be an exact length, and After Effects is great at this. Let's choose File Open. And I'll navigate to folder 2.3, Time Remap. Time remapping gives you the ability to change speed variably. Here, I've got a sequence or a composition with one shot in it. Let me play it back for you.
Look, drop. Good. Look, drop. Good.
Two things. First up, you can hear my voice in the background because this is a TV commercial I directed. It was for the National Foundation of Credit Counseling, and this is a shot where our protagonist has recently lost his job and is packing up his desk. Now, with a TV commercial, things have to be precisely timed to equal the 30-second or 60-second TV commercial. So this was take 15, and while I'm saying drop and good, pay attention.
Look, drop. Good.
I'm saying good because I'm frustrated and it's time to move on, and he's not following my direction, but we're just going to fix it in post. The key here was when I said drop, he was supposed to lower the picture. So let's fix that. With the layer selected, I'll choose Layer, Time, Enable Time Remapping. Now there's keyframes that equal time. This first keyframe is 0 seconds. This last keyframe is currently 5:19. Well, that's the same duration as the clip. Time hasn't changed yet. Let's look at this here. I'll press play.
Look, drop.
That's where I wanted him to drop it. So let's come over here, take a look, and add a marker. This marker helps us indicate the key action. Now, as I take a look, that's where he's dropping it, right there. I'll add another marker. Now, rather than just cutting things out, I can preserve things. For example, this speed feels natural as he takes this into his hands. So I'll add another frame. Currently, we haven't changed the time yet, but we've marked out the issues. Here's the front. Let's turn off the audio for a second. He lifts it. That's fine. the middle section is too long. And then he lowers it. Well, the lifting and lowering, I want to maintain their speed, so this feels natural. But it's that middle part I want to condense. So what we can do is pretty simple. I can lasso these two keyframes. We're going to keep the relationship between these unchanged. Same thing here. From here to here, nothing shifts. But now I can drag these down. If I hold down the Shift key, it'll actually line up with that marker. So let's have a look. We'll turn the audio back on.
Look.
Okay, now that little speed up is there, but it's lining up okay. Let's undo for a second. And I'm going to duplicate this footage, duplicate, turn off the video track, and just use the audio. Now, that's going to be left alone, and we can lock it. That's just there as reference audio. Again, let's take the frames here up top and pull those up a little bit until they snap to the marker. All right, here we go.
Look. Drop.
Close. I'm going to move these a little closer. Let's have a look again.
Drop. Good. Look. Drop.
Perfect. Things are now precisely timed. Now, if you want to get a little bit of resistance here, in and out, you can select this keyframe, and let's take a look at the velocity graph. In this one, I'm going to choose Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Ease In. It creates a little gentle ramp. Now let's select this one. We'll go ahead and just click the Next button to go to it, and I'll say Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Ease Out. See the change? Let's go back here. This keyframe, Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Ease In. Go to the next one. Make sure it's selected. Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Ease Out. Now let's have a look. Making sure that frame blending is turned on and enabled for the layer.
Good. Look.
Not bad. I'm just going to move this a little bit.
Drop. Good. Look. Drop.
Not bad. Now, let's undo a couple of steps, and I'm going to turn the ease off here. It's creating more variation than I'd like. But let's go to our velocity graph for a moment, click on the keyframe, and we'll choose Keyframe Velocity. This lets us see what's happening here as it goes in and out. That's fine if we want to create velocity. Additionally there, I can command click on the keyframe to change its shape. Look at the graph here now. Just a very slight, subtle change.
Look. Drop.
I like it.
Good. Look. Drop.
Perfect. We've now got our proper change. I'll turn that audio track off, and you'll see here as it gets to the end, it just becomes a freeze frame. Now, we're going to actually be cut out of the shot before that in the TV commercial, but here, by using time remapping, we were able to precisely change time, ramping in and out of time, having variable speed effects, and precisely retiming the shot to the exact action that I needed for this TV commercial. All right, let's keep exploring. Now, we've taken footage and we've slowed it down. We've sped it up. We've variably changed the speed. But what about reversing it? Well, that's quite possible. Let's take a look here at this shot. I'm working with Composition 2.4, and currently our spring toy is going down the stairs. And that's fine, but what happens if I want it to go the other way? Well, one method is to click here on stretch, and instead of going 100%, you can go negative 100%, and it will literally flip the direction. The problem is that it becomes anchored here by the point, and you'd have to drag and move this around. So let's undo. Instead, there's a better command. Layer, time reverse layer. Now look at the bottom of the footage there. It visually changed to indicate that the frames have been flipped. Now, if we play this, instead of the slinky going down the stairs all alone, it goes up the stairs, not in pairs. Now, that's a really bad joke for those of you that grew up with that jingle and had one of these like I did as a kid, but still, this is a pretty cool effect. Being able to reverse layers allows you to control exactly what happens. And remember, be sure to explore enabling frame blending. This is going to create a smoother effect and give you better motion on the effects. There we go. So whether you want to go forward, backwards, variable speed, reverse speed, After Effects has you covered, making it a great tool for visual effects or precise retiming if you need to correct footage. All right, let's go on and explore some new areas.